All right, we're here. Happy New Year. It's the first episode. It's really exciting to be able to be here today. First episode of It's Great to Be podcast. My name is Brian Lilly. I'm here with my co-host.
Jordan Taylor, what's up, everybody? Great to be here. Great to get things rolling.
Hey, man, it's going to be special. It's something that we've been kind of having in the lab for a little bit, and so we're excited. But without further ado, we're going to kind of hop into it. So the first question we're always going to ask is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not really, 10 being for sure, how great are you feeling, Doc?
Man, I think that life right now is busy for us. I'd probably say about an 8. It's the holidays, things are busy, a little bit chaotic, especially with a 3-year-old boy and a 1-year-old boy. But
For sure.
me and the wife are getting through and seeing a lot of family, so that's always good.
Yeah.
But a positive, uplifting time for sure. So, I know me and you always keep in touch, as much as we can. But how are things with you, man? Scale of 1 to 10, how's life going?
I'm kind of like an all or nothing type of guy, you know what I'm saying? So I'm probably, I mean, I'm great, you know what I'm saying? So probably a 10.
Yeah.
A 10, my wife's good, my kids are good. A 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, I think that it's one of those times in our lives where, people say cherish those moments because they're fleeting. And, I think that that's definitely true, to be able to see how big my son's gotten. I'm sure you see the same thing with yours.
Oh
Your
yeah.
daughter's talking like crazy. And so to be able to spend the time during the holidays with them, I think is great. Being able to go back to Denison soon and be with all the people that I love, it's going to be awesome. That'll make it that much better. Always have that, kind of, I may not be a 10, I may be a 9 whenever I leave, because
I
I'm
hear.
just I'm leaving off of
I know.
everybody, you know what I'm saying? If everybody's in one spot. But for the most part, that's there. I think that you can't ask for any more whenever your wife's healthy, your kids are healthy. I think that that's kind of how it is. But for sure, like speaking for men, how we are is, you don't necessarily want to have that to where, we aren't taking care of ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
you gotta be able to do that, work out, get the things rolling, and so I got a Peloton and I get it
There you go.
in,
There you
and
go. I hit
so
the gym here in the neighborhood occasionally and do my thing, get out there and run a little bit. So it's important to stay after it.
yeah, absolutely, dog, absolutely. So, really, whenever we got into this, it was a big deal, and you and I talked about this, but it was a big deal for us to be able to kind of like shine a light on Denison, a place where that we hold near and dear to our hearts. But I think that as growth comes, and it's obviously projected, but it's going to happen. I think paying homage to the past and making sure that you stay true to the foundational principles and understanding the traditions. I think that that's what's important as the city grows, and everything grows. And that's kind of the reason why we wanted to do this. And behind the name, a lot of times it's broken down in an acronym. But it's great to be, comes from Coach Criswell in the 1984, after the state championship, when he said it's great to be a Denison Yellow Jacket. And Denison's kind of taken that and ran with it. We've all kind of grew up on it. And so I think that was really cool for us to be able to do that. But part of it says it's just great to be. And yeah, we made it in Yellow Jacket colors and those kind of things. But we wanted to be able to have like a Denison edition, but then kind of roll with it. But what were your kind of thoughts whenever I came to you about the idea?
I think to touch on some of that is there's so many great, influential people that have come, from Denison, from the North Texas area. And I think that it's important to, like you said, pay homage to those people. Not everyone, especially younger generations, younger kids may not know some of the things that happened, 20, 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
I know that it is great to be able to kind of get something going to where we can get some of these familiar faces. And it's not just, you know, coaches. It's not just former players. These are people who are influential, the educators, first responders, people in the community, that we're going to get involved with some of this too.
Yeah, I think that that's great that you brought that up because it would be easy to think that this is just something about athletics, right? Especially about football. But that's not it, right? Like
Yeah.
there's been a lot of great that's come from Denison, Dwight D. Eisenhower,
Oh yeah,
Sully Sullenberger. There's a lot of
absolutely.
great things and a lot of great people that have come from supposedly Bush's Baked Beans. I think were from there. Maybe it wasn't
You
Bush's Baked
never
Beans. Maybe
know.
it's ranch style beans. I think it's ranch style
Okay.
beans. So like
Okay.
there's a lot of different things that are supposedly from Denison, but we just didn't want it to be something that was just about football. That's easy, right? Football is something that God gave us that allowed for us to provide for our families and be able to get to the situations where we're at today, which obviously we'll talk a lot about that. But even with that, it comes from a foundation of other sports, but also comes from a foundation of people believe in us, right? Like your dad. Your dad was
Of
somebody that
course.
was a coach for us. And so I think there's so many people there that and different things and different momentous occasions that are there that we would be remiss to just talk about football all the time, right?
For sure, for sure. And obviously, football is a huge part of mine and yours live, and it's always has been. But like you said, it's everything else that, behind the scenes, that, all the people that put in work and believed in us along the way, and instilled some level of confidence that allowed us to go out in the real world and, give it our best shot, at the end of the day, and that's all you can do.
100%. So we're going to kind of get into some questions. I think that a backstory of this is whenever I was a sophomore playing on varsity, Jordan's brother Ryan was a senior, and in his class kind of took me under the wing, and as we went into the playoffs, and then whenever I was a senior, Jordan's class was sophomores, and they were the ones eventually that got us to the hump to get into the state semifinal games and things like that. So there's a lot to it, but Jordan, kind of going into your story, kind of give us a little backstory about you and your family and Denison, and let's kind of get into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my parents grew up, graduated here from Denison High School. Um, me and my brother grew up in the same house on Morrison Street, 1402 Morrison Drive. Grew up a Hyde Park Tiger. Um, obviously, went on to play quarterback here in Denison, graduated in 2010. I went from there to play at Rice University, graduated from there in 2014. Went from there, was blessed enough to continue playing, played 4 years in Denver and about a year in Minnesota after that. And so now I'm here. We're living in Spring. I have two boys, as I kind of mentioned earlier, a 3-year-old named Dawson, a 1-year-old named Miles, and shoot, living the married life right now, and just being as involved as I can be with those guys right now and my wife, and that's kind of what I'm all about right now.
Am I right in thinking that your mom's maiden name was Taylor, and then she married your dad, whose last name was Taylor, so she really didn't even have to change her name?
Yeah, it's an interesting deal, to say the least. But yeah, man, I mean, literally, both sides of the family, you won't find anybody but a Taylor. And so, it's a cool deal, but something that was definitely a joke, at times too.
No, I think that's cool, man. My family, we're born and raised Denison Yellow Jackets. You know what I'm saying? Like, my mom and dad had me when they were in high school. I lived with my grandparents. My grandparents worked hard to provide for me. Everybody knew my granny. She would take us around all the time. She was like a chauffeur. She was probably an Uber before Uber was a thing,
Yeah,
and she was able to take us around, and people probably didn't even know her name, just knew her
yeah,
by Granny. And
yep,
I was able to tackle people and get paid to go to college to tackle people.
yep,
And, that was able to alleviate that financial burden from my family. That would have been hard to go to university if we didn't have that. And so being able to go to Texas State, I was able to play there for redshirted my first year, started for 3 years, team captain, leadership council, those kind of things. It was really awesome to be able to kind of make those long-term friendships. Me and the guys were in still in a fantasy football league that I just
yep.
lost in the semifinals. Lord have mercy. We laid an egg in the semifinals. But it was, it was great to be able to be there. I went to Golden Rule.
Yep,
My aunt, Denise Brownfield, she was a librarian. We lived over there on that side of town at the time. Graduated '08, and, my wife graduated 2010 with you.
yep,
And so I think that it was just a big thing. Denison is we talk about bleeding black and gold. I definitely believe that, and I think that you believe that as well. And that was something that I always thought that my was what I was going to do was I was going to graduate from college, go work back in Denison, be in Denison for the rest of my life, and just kind of roll from there. And it kind of, God works in mysterious ways. I was able to move to Tennessee, and I've been out here ever since. And so I think that that's been something that's really cool. Both of our high school head football coaches, I worked for him, Coach White, for a while. Hope to have him on the podcast. Coach White, this is the plug. Somebody's going to hear this, and they're going to send it to you. You're going to
for
be on here.
sure.
We're going to make you. But I definitely was something that was awesome to be able just to kind of get out here, and for football to be able to kind of, be that medium that got me to where I needed to be in life. But speaking of that, I like football, right? Like football was a big deal in our lives. But like, what was the first sport that you played?
That's what I was going to kind of get into. I can think back on some of our first interactions. The first times I remember seeing Brian Lilly, and it was at the Little League baseball fields.
Yeah,
And that's kind of where, I started my, sport career, I guess, if you will. I can just remember, even at a younger age, 7 and 8 year old, Little League baseball was so competitive. And I can
absolutely.
remember that first team I was on, the New York Yankees. We won first place, and it minor winning a 7 and 8 year old Little League championship. But
Yeah,
you'd be surprised at how much that kind of developed a mindset from that point on moving forward. Not that I expected to win every game I ever played, but there was a mindset of, hey, we're going out here to win, and
absolutely.
that competitive nature started to develop. And I think that that's kind of the first memory that I really have of sports and kind of getting that feeling of being competitive. So, and also, like I said, some of the first times I can remember watching you play ball as well. And I'm sure, some of your first memories or first sports you played were something similar.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, you can see the pictures of this, brown curly haired, big eared boy out there playing baseball. And then my grandpa, that was his first love. And my grandpa wouldn't even let me play football until it's kind of going ahead of what we're going to talk about. But my grandpa didn't even want me to play football. He said I was too small and this, that, and the other. I was going to get hurt. And my grandmother took it amongst herself to take me to get a physical, sign me up to play football. And on the
Yep.
first game of the season, we told him that we had a game.
Oh,
And he didn't even know. And then, fast forward to my senior year, he was like, "Hey, if you just want to play football, that's fine."
yeah.
And so it kind of definitely was a full 180. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, definitely when I was, I think around the time of my son's age right now, I was playing with Ronnie Krause and the Boys and Girls Club. And I really only had three coaches the whole time that I was playing baseball. It was Ronnie Krause, the Boys and Girls Club, and then I ended up with my grandpa, who was on my grandpa Rucker, who was our Detroit Tigers in minor league, and
Yep.
then Mike Daughtery, who was our Royals coach and in Little League from there. And so I really had just those guys because then when I went to Pony League, I was right back on Ronnie Krause's team. And so those were coaches that were all, when I look back on my coaching style, being a football coach now, I really was with coaches that were also in charge of the league that were kind of like a kind of what I am today, right? An athletic
Yeah.
director and also a coach. They were
Yep.
in charge of the league, but they also were really tough, right? And
Yep.
they loved you. Some people maybe necessarily didn't think that they probably thought they were a little tough and they were yelling at kids and all those kind of things. They weren't yelling; they just spoke very
Yeah.
loudly.
Absolutely.
And I love those guys, and that's kind of how I've kind of been in my life. And even Coach White's kind of the same way, right? Like your brother and his friends always talk about we don't have time for JV jogging, we have time for varsity running.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so like
Exactly.
I've always been around those kind of guys, but playing baseball was awesome to me. It was my first love. That's actually how I met my brother-in-law and then my father-in-law, and then it's kind of weird. The first time I ever saw my wife, we were at a tournament and I saw her walk in. I don't know how I remember that other than fate itself, but that was kind of
There
those
you go.
things.
Hey, shout out Aaron. I'm sure she'll love that part.
Yeah, yeah, love you. And but it was baseball was always something that was great to me, and I loved it. And I remember the last time I ever played. It was right before you would have been a sophomore, and we had a regional track meet that we were going to, and I was also running track at the time, and I had to miss my senior night. My grandma and grandpa walked out there without me, and we were in San Angelo, running, and we actually set the school record in the 4x2 at the time. I think it's previously been. I think it got B just a couple years ago. It was there for like 15 years or so.
Wow.
But track was something that I really enjoyed as well. We went out there with a team of Shaylin Moore, Cody Reeves, Shalimar Trailer, myself, and we got, I think it was fourth overall. I think we ran like a 128, low 128. But school record for a long time until recently. But I know that we were playing baseball at the same time, right? And the great thing, a testament to Coach Means, was that he's all about multi-sport participation, which is
For
what we
sure.
need, especially as our boys grow up, our daughters grow up, right? We're not into, this mind mentality of like, you can only play one thing, but you also were running track, right?
Absolutely. And to touch on what you just kind of were talking about or alluding to is, we all played, as many sports as we could, as many as we could fit in, the time would allow us to,
Yep.
and I do. I think today, I think some parents, kids get away from that a little bit, trying to focus too much or put too many eggs in one basket. And these kids have to develop. I mean, I was still developing late into college,
Hmm.
in so many ways. And so you just never know what route, things are going to go. I think, you never want to close any doors. But to talk about kind of the balance of playing two sports essentially at one time, playing baseball while also trying to compete at a high level, in track and field. It's a testament to the type of guys and girls that can do that.
Hmm.
I mean, it takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of sacrifice. There may be things that other kids your age that aren't necessarily into sports that are going to do that you may have to say, hey, I've had to sit this one out,
Yeah.
and I think that for me personally, as a freshman and a sophomore, thankfully I had a guy like you to be able to take me under their wing, in some of those
Yeah.
moments where and say, hey man, let's go this way, and let's make a better decision than that, or whatever the case may have been, to kind of help me along in my journey too.
For sure. Probably some of those one-handed catches that you made in the league and at Rice whenever we used to sit in the back of the bus and throw a football back and forth. And I think my brother-in-law used to get mad at us because he'd be like, "Hey, we're getting ready for a baseball game, not a football game." Hey, little did we know we were ahead of our time, and that's how you
Hey,
warm up your arm, anyways. You know what I'm saying? So,
absolutely. And some guys prepare a little different.
no, I think that that's true. The coolest thing about that, if you really look back into whenever Denison has been at its height, and just in terms of the best athletes have ever come through there. And if it was talking about the best athletes, I might be on the list, but I know there's a lot of people that are way better than me. But it was, people were playing football and basketball, right? You think back to Vinny Rhodes and Anthony Hines and DJ Jones, Shalimar Trailer. All those guys are playing is playing multiple sports, and then you look
Yep.
into Corey Robertson's going to state track meet in the hurdles. So is Stanley, in field events. There's so many people, and then you look back into even baseball. My dad and my uncle were both all-state football players. We were also started on the baseball team,
Yeah.
and I think
Coach
that
Means, Coach
whenever,
Means was a heck of a,
yeah,
obviously
absolutely.
football, baseball.
Coach Wig, who coached us as well. There's a
Yep.
lot of guys that we can't name everybody, but it's a multi-sport participation school, and that's always how it's been, and that's just that's just what it was,
Yep.
and when I had this love for football, it was caught because I was the ball boy in seventh grade. My uncle Taurus was one of the coaches. He asked me to do it. I'm chasing up and down the sideline as Corey Robertson is running touchdowns, T right, sweep right,
Oh yeah.
red flanker left, sweep 59. And that's how I caught the love for it, and Corey never came off the field, and Corey he was a starting free safety, starting running back, the kick returner. I mean, the dude's never off the field. And so
Yep.
that's just what we did too. And that's
Yep.
what we saw. And, I think we've always had a smaller enrollment than the people we played against. And so, that was something that was really cool. But I think, for you, whenever you were playing with your team, when we were seniors, when I was a sophomore and your brother was a senior, we went to the playoffs. We went 3 rounds deep, which was awesome. We didn't go to the playoffs again until after I graduated your junior year.
Yep.
And I'd like to think that our class was small, but hopefully we had a little bit to do with you guys getting to where you needed to be, and but y'all were the ones that were able to kind of get back to that situation. Your brother went to the third round. All right, now you go to the fourth round, and then the
Yep.
next year you go to the fifth round.
Yep.
And I think that kind of talking about that. That's what made your class special. You had a bunch of dudes, Jamae and Jaqueline and DJ and you, Cody Reeves, like, Devo, Doug, a lot of guys that were able to do it, but all guys are playing multiple sports as well.
Yep. Yep.
But kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that, all those guys were multi-sport athletes, and I think that was, advantageous for us on the football field. There's no doubt. I think a lot of that, directly correlated to wins on the field, but not just playing another sport, but competing at a high level year round, no matter what sport it is. I think that just develops a mindset, and that's really I mean, obviously you mentioned a DJ Jones, Jermaine Mundine, Cody Reeves, Jaqueline Arbs, Devo Kemp, I mean, Aaron Morrison. I mean, the list goes on, of guys who were extremely athletic, who had plenty of ability, but our mindset, I think, is what also set us apart.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell any of us that, we weren't going to go win a state championship. And
Hmm.
that's just kind of how we approached our work every day in the off season, whether it's in the weight room, or whether it's on the practice field during the season. And so that was a fun group to be a part of. Still some of the most fun football, I've ever played. I can look back. I've played in a lot of big time games, three bowl games in college, conference championship in college, was in the Super Bowl. Um, and you know, not there's not much that compares to some of those nights, on Friday nights, playing with some of those guys because they're kids that you grew up with forever. The bond
Yeah.
is so strong
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
it's hard to compare that no matter where you go in life.
Yeah. So speaking about that, like whenever you found out you were getting inducted to the Hall of Fame, Denison Athletic Hall of Fame, like how'd that make you feel?
Man, I'm getting the chills right now, just thinking about it, because of the names listed earlier. Your Corey Robertsons, your Stanley Morrisons, your Anthony Hines, your Vinny Rhodes, your Aaron Hunts, your Brian
Hmm.
Lillies, and all the way back. It was just an honor, truly an honor, to be included in that group, of guys. And I know there are a lot of guys still to come that have not,
Absolutely.
been inducted yet, and they
Absolutely.
will be. But I think the thing that really struck me is when I was up there, there were also three very influential ladies that were inducted: Miss Woody, Miss Hunt, and Miss Mobley.
Oh yeah.
Three ladies
Absolutely.
who each directly impacted me as well,
Yeah.
if not directly teaching me. And I started thinking about, together those women probably have 90 plus years of experience,
Yeah.
impacting lives of kids, going through the Denison school system. And it was just an honor to be up there with them too, for playing a little football, you know what I mean? Just doing what I love to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
and I know that, I was, super excited for you this past year,
Yeah.
to also, join that group. So
Absolutely.
talk about that a little bit.
No, I think it was great, man. Like it was the coolest thing was that my uncle Taurus, we got inducted in the same year, and without my uncle Taurus, there's no me. Without my dad, there's no Taurus because my dad kind of paved the way for Taurus, and Taurus kind of paved the way for me, and
Yep.
that was just it was really a full circle moment. I never would have imagined, when I was in it, that would have occurred, and it's probably one of the greatest honors I've ever received in my life, just because of the sheer, amount of love and respect and admiration that I have for the place itself. And to be able to, Coach Davis was in our class as well, and he was our defensive coordinator when I first got up to varsity with Coach Brown, and so to be able to have that with him was awesome. But it was really special to be able to do that, and like you said, there's many more people to come
Yep.
that just have to be nominated,
Yep.
and so be able to get those guys in as well. But it was really cool, man, and it was something that had to do a lot of maneuvering because still coaching football. It was a wild weekend. It was, as you know, it was like
Yeah.
I flew to Denison on a Wednesday night, had the Hall of Fame on a Thursday.
Yep.
Flew back Friday morning for my football game. Flew back Saturday morning for y'all's class of 2010
Yeah.
reunion, and Brian and my son's birthday party, and then flew back Sunday for game planning. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
man.
would
I,
I,
I don't
I
I
would
don't know how you do. We need to check your water or something because
have.
there's something going on, man.
Hey man, it's just built different, dog. You know what I'm saying? But no, it was something that I wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't even tried to make it work had it not been for something so special,
Yep.
and even but Coach Brown did get on to me because I saw him on that Thursday and he said, "Well, don't you have a game today?" And I said, "Oh, Coach, my staff's taking care of the freshman game. They've got that." And he goes, "Shouldn't you be there?" And I, yes, sir, I should be. But they
Yeah.
told me I had to be here
This is
or I
pretty
couldn't get
important.
in. And he
Yeah.
goes, "Well, I think you should have
Uh,
been at your game." You know what I'm saying? I'm
deep
sorry.
down, he was glad you were there.
Yeah, it was cool, but he definitely gave me a hard time about it. He told Tarsh the same thing because he had a game as well, and so now that was really cool, and that's one of those things that I know there's been some people that have come before us, but there's definitely going to be some more of our peers that are going to get in,
Absolutely.
after facts, and people that'll be on the show, hopefully as we kind of go forward. But we've kind of been on that for a minute. The next thing is something that's I don't know organic is just kind of your opinion on what like they don't people don't know where Denison is. Some people say, hey, it's 45 minutes north of Dallas, or it's on the Oklahoma Texas border, or it's by Choctaw Casino. But like, what makes Denison great to you? Like, what to you yourself? What do you think makes our city? I would still say our town,
Yeah.
oh, great.
I think it is that aspect of the town feel. It does feel like a tighter community than living in a larger city or some other of these kind of newer schools, your Frisco schools, your McKinney ISDs, where they've got, so many different schools that, yeah, you still have a little bit of town pride, but it's nothing the same. And you've got generations of people, that have lived here for, their entire lives. And so the roots of, Denison history go so deep, and in almost all the players that come through, or anybody who comes through really, Denison schools. And I think that it's such a diverse place still.
Yeah,
Where it's located. I think diverse from an economic standpoint. I think diverse from, um, an ethnicity standpoint. I
yeah,
think that there are so many different things that come together, and you've got so many different walks of life, and kind of how everybody just gels together. I think that
yeah,
that's such an incredible piece of Denison, and what makes Denison so special.
yeah, for sure.
But there are so many things that make this place special, and so I'd like to hear something that you think as well.
Well, I don't. I think that you hit the nail on the head when you talk about the diversity and kind of like a melting pot, right? Like, I never really thought anything of that until I went out into the world post Denison, right?
Yep,
And there wasn't really a thing there where we're from, right? Like, it's
yep,
we play baseball. It didn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter the football. It doesn't matter. That we may have the people that have a lot of money, people that have no money, people that
yep,
have everything in the middle, but it didn't matter, right? Like,
yep,
and so you had friends that because of school, because of sports, because of whatever kind of extracurricular, people became friends regardless. And it
yep,
may be that you may live in a trailer out of
yep,
town, or you may live in a 3-story house by Waterloo, or
yep,
whatever it may be. That stuff didn't matter, and that stuff's never mattered. And I
yep,
think that's one of the things that makes it special. Somebody like me, I think, for my mom and dad, I'm sure in 1990 having a biracial son wasn't necessarily the easiest thing, but I think in a place like Denison, it probably was a little bit easier than it could have been in other places.
yep,
But I know as I grew up, it was never really a thing, right? Like, it was never really a thing to think that. But I think that one of the things that makes us special is the amount of people that have been there, that have been invested in the community for the longest time. Aaron's grandfather was the mayor of Denison in 1982, I believe. My grandpa was a businessman that had been there for his whole life. Both have since passed away, but they're kind of like your grandpa who worked on the railroad that was there, and so
yep,
there was a lot of our people that have kind of went before us. It's one of those things where hopefully we hope and pray that God provides for us every single day, but that at some point in time our road leads back somewhere close to Denison or in Denison. But that's where all the people that we love are. And for the
yep,
longest time, there's always this notion of like, moving away from your hometown. Like, I gotta get out. I gotta get out. But that wasn't really a thing for me, right? Like, it wasn't really a thing for me. I didn't think, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything wrong with that. I didn't see
yep,
anything wrong with being there. But I knew that as I got deeper and deeper into school, I needed to go to college, right?
yep,
And that was something that Miss Bodiger pushed on us. And how are we going to go to school? Okay, you're going to go to school. Hopefully, be good enough to be able to play football. And so be able to get some kind of money. Anywhere it's free is
yep,
for me. And so that's why I
yep,
told my
yep,
grandparents, it don't matter where it is, where the closest thing it says the free 99, I'm gonna be there.
yep,
And so that was something. But I always thought that I would be the one that would be hey, I go to college, I move back, this is where I'm at. And,
Yeah.
obviously God had different plans for that. But, I think that it's really about I think I used to work at a school and they would talk about the most important thing about the school is the relationships.
Yep.
I think that's what it is. I think that it's still that small town relationships. I know, one of our great friends, Brooke Morrison, she still kind of does the homecoming parade for the school, and having that is important, right? Having a
Yep.
homecoming parade whenever we were, inducted Hall of Fame, but like seeing that and seeing the people out there, still being able to have that for Christmas time and all that. Like, I think that's important. And that's still that small town feel
Yep.
that we can't lose. I don't think we can. I don't think we should.
Right.
At the end of the day, what happens. But that's what kind of sets us apart, and people see that, and people have seen that, and people have moved there, and that's fine.
Yep.
But it's one of those things that I think that we have to continue to pay homage to the past, and we got to make sure that we understand that change is great. Like I said earlier, change is great, but staying true to your foundational principles is always the most important.
Yep. Yep.
And being able to, you know, back in the day, we're running out back in black and we're wearing black.
Yep.
That's what we wear. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like those,
Yep.
those kind of things like that, but it's not, it's Denison, and there's always been this great opinion of it. And still is, and still
Yep.
is. And so I'm glad that things between Sherman and Denison aren't as crazy as they used to be,
Yeah.
in terms of, being very ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's still that rivalry there.
Oh
The
yeah.
longest people that don't know, it's the longest running rivalry in the state of Texas history.
It's awesome.
And it's one of the coolest things you'll be able to see. You'll see 10,000 people out there at a high school football game. Week 1 used to be week 10 for us.
Yep.
Which I think about as a football coach, like that had to be awful playing week 10 and then you go into the playoffs. Like there's probably no coincidence that them and us would lose a lot of time in the first round of the playoffs, being a number 1 seed because
Oh yeah.
you come right off of that game.
You go in there and beat each other up, obviously,
Exactly.
throwing out all the stops. So yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that that's it. But going back and wrapping that up, it's about the people, just like what you were talking about, and the people being genuine.
Yep.
And I think just the people genuinely being themselves, where we see a lot of our friends that have moved back or that are there, and they're kind of that next generation that's going to be there for the kids, for our kids.
Yep.
And so I think that that's very important. And I think that that's part of the thing that makes it so great. But without further ado, you know what I'm saying? We've been talking about Denison for a minute. We're going to take this a little bit to the left, and we're going to talk about what we got on right now. It's the second official Rice versus Texas State Bowl game in 2023, the First Responders Bowl. Texas State Bobcats took down the Rice Owls.
They did.
The Texas State Bobcats had this great showing on the field, but also off the field when they stormed the Rice sidelines and concession stands and drank all the beer over there too. And so we out drank and out played Rice on that day. But y'all are a much smaller school than us, so I mean, obviously, rightfully so.
Yeah.
But I think that the being able to play in the Armed Forces Bowl is exciting, and this is actually a bowl game that you played in, right?
Yeah, man. Back in 2012, played in the Armed Forces Bowl. Actually was the MVP of that
That's the
game.
jersey you've got on right now.
Hey, you see it? You see it?
You
You
had
see
the
the
stun
patch?
on it
You
one
see the
time. I see
patch?
you.
But yeah, it was an incredible bowl. I mean, obviously, what it represents, the armed forces, representing all of our military branches,
Yeah.
is obviously, pretty awesome in itself. But then, obviously, just to have an opportunity, as a young kid in college from Denison, not only to go play in a bowl game, a meaningful game at the end of the year, the location of it, being from
Yeah.
Denison, there was so many family members and friends that were able to
Heck
come.
yeah.
And so that really was a special game for me.
Oh, I'm sure. I think that you're not giving us exactly how well you played in the game too, right? Like it's go ahead and give it to us. You
I mean,
did it. It's
I
already
think
out
I
there.
went. I think I had nine catches for about 160 and 3 touchdowns. So we won't
Yeah.
talk too much about it, but they finally get threw it up and gave me a chance.
Who was your quarterback then?
Well, it was Taylor McCard
Yeah.
going into the game. He actually got a concussion, I think, midway through the first quarter, and Dreyfus Jackson came in.
Yeah, I
So
remember him.
Taylor threw
Dreyfus
me one,
Jackson.
Dreyfus threw me two. So I was giving them both some love.
Got you. No, that's great, man. I think that that's really awesome to be able to be there and be that close to home. It's kind of like the time whenever your brother this is off subject, but the time that your brother went was starting center at UCLA, and they went to play at the University of Texas.
Incredible.
And so for him to be able to play there, we had our own game that day, so I didn't get to go. But you may not know the story, but there was all these people that came from out of town, right? And they came to stay in our apartment, and people just, I mean, I'm talking about everywhere on the floor, right? There's just
Okay.
dudes everywhere. And so after the game, after my game, your brother's game, we went down there, kicked it with them outside of the hotel for a little bit. But what ended up happening was the next morning, my mom had called me, and that was when we found out my grandma was really sick.
Uh,
And she was just like, "Hey, I know this is abrupt, but your granny's really sick. They're giving her like 2 to 3 months to live. You need to get home." And I'm distraught, dog. I'm talking
yeah.
about like I'm distraught. This is my person,
Yeah.
um, and as it would be, my brother-in-law Evan, and then one of my best friends Kevin Holzbog, they were there, and they were just literally about to drive back to Denison. And so it was like they were able. I don't know how I would have got home. I couldn't have driven myself. I just literally
Yeah.
either slept
Yeah.
or cried the whole time
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
And they were the ones that was actually that weekend. They actually were able to take me
Wow.
back there. And fast forward, my granny, she lived for 5 more years afterwards. Right? It's like she was hard
Yeah.
headed, kind of got her in the situation in the first place, but also kept her there. And she wanted to see me and my brother graduate from college. Me graduate from college, my brother graduate from high school, which we did. And so it was really cool. But that was that weekend. But I think that that's really exciting to be able to play in front of all those people, especially in an environment like that, right? Like I can only imagine, your brother, they beat UCLA. UCLA beat Texas, which was a big deal.
Yeah.
But I think that for you in the Armed Forces Bowl, especially you were kind of part of the, if I get this right, like you were kind of a part of the Rice class that kind of got you guys into playing in bowls regularly, right?
Yeah, yeah. We struggled my first couple years and years leading up to me coming to Rice. And that year, honestly, we started out the season I think 1-5, one and
Wow.
six, and ended up winning 5 or 6 straight. To finish the season off, make it to a bowl game. And that propelled us to my junior year where we went, I think 10-2, won a conference championship, went and
That's
played
awesome.
Mississippi State, in the Liberty Bowl. We won't touch on that one too much, but obviously, the opportunity to play in a bowl like that was special.
Yeah.
And then we went the following year, my senior year, and played in the Hawaii Bowl against Fresno State. So yeah, 3 consecutive bowl games, the winningest period in Rice history, the
That's
only
awesome.
outright conference championship in Rice
Wow.
history. So I mean, but again, kind of how, the teammates that I had in Denison, it was the same, at Rice. God has a
Yeah.
plan, and it's crazy how God works, and the guys that He allowed to be there at the same time when
Yeah.
I was at Rice. When you look back at it, it's incredible.
Yeah. Shout out to Coach Bailiff, the Texas State Bobcat. That was your high school, your college head
He's
coach. That
probably Texas State at heart, as much as I hate to say it,
hey
but
man, he is.
yeah, man, that's I'm happy for him.
He always tells a story about how he texts you, and he was like, "Hey, what hotel should I stay at?" And he was like, "Hey, coach, the wedding's about to happen right now."
Yeah, yeah,
He's
man.
like,
I
"Who
invite
gets
him to the
married on a
wedding. I
Friday?"
invite him to the wedding, and he calls me. Hey, I'm like, Coach, I'm getting married in an hour, man.
Hey, this is kind of weird, but our baby monitor's going off. So hold, Jordan. You can talk about whatever you want to in the process. This is kind of weird, but I'm gonna do this real fast.
Yeah, hey, the dad life. It is real. I think I'm trying to be a little quiet here. My 1-year-old is sleeping in the room next to me as well, so hopefully we don't have any issues.
Hey man, I told you that we was gonna be live in this thing. So whatever happens, happens. The
Hey,
baby is not crying. The monitor we just lost connection. They're both asleep. They're fine.
it's better
No need to
just
worry.
safe to
But it
be.
was
Yep,
just
better
a it
safe
was
than
just a
sorry.
beep beep beep. I
Yep,
didn't want that going. So no, Coach Bailiff is great. There's a lot of those guys that I knew that were your friends that you guys would come visit Texas State, and some good guys. And I think Coach Bailiff, especially too. I'll see him at the game, and he'll always ask about you. And when I go to Texas State games, and so that was a part of you were one of those guys, one of his guys. And so
yep,
I think that that's really important. He's a great guy. Some of your coaches when he first came there, what people don't know is what Coach Bailiff was a All American at Texas State, and led him to a conference championship, led him to the quarterfinals
yep.
with Barrett Neely as the quarterback. Barrett Neely is is our running back coach at Texas State now. Tom Herman was offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
Coach
yeah,
Niver, Coach Niver was one of the coordinators, and then Jason Washington, who's also your coaches, that was
Yep.
there.
Coach
They
Walsh. Yep.
eventually come back and coach for us at Texas
Yep.
State, but a lot of guys that kind of went from Texas State to going to Rice and were a part of that. So there's a lot of like kind of
Yeah, it's crazy how it all
intertwined,
kind of
different
ties.
things. But I think, going to Rice, my cousin, Play Wyatt, he's somebody that's been at Rice for, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 years, but
Yep.
4-year starter, had some injuries. He's kind of the face of Rice right now. I think he's a part of a group that goes and meets with the president of the
I
university.
know he's one of their big leaders. He's one of their main
Yeah.
leaders.
And he's great. He wears my uncle's number 41. He does well. I know him and Sean Taylor's brother, who was there, Gabe. They were really good friends, and that was one of the things. I think Rice was the first school that maybe offered play.
Yep.
He played at McKinney Boyd, and so he was able to kind of have those offers, kind of same as you, some Ivies and
Yep.
some academic schools, and
Yep.
I had talked to my uncle a while back, and I said, man, it's what's lost in today's society, especially in college athletics, is staying true to the place that wanted you in the first place and where you started. And
Yep.
I think that you don't have the pride for the school if you don't stay there. Now, it's a business, and it's a business much more now than it's ever been. We understand that, and kids are getting to get paid, and that's cool. We used to always worry if somebody wanted to give us a free taco, would we get in trouble? But, it's one of those things now where they're getting paid, but also it's a business, and it's very transactional, rather than transformational. And so I think that staying true to a program and staying there the entire time gets us to where we have the pride for Texas State, like you do for Rice. And like Play will have for Rice, because he's been there the entire time. And so we're excited to be able to see him play in his last game. It's going to be really cool. All my family will be there. It was actually a kicker. One of my really great friends I worked at Brentwood Academy, her son, Tommy Baccaro, he's a kicker that just signed with Rice.
Okay.
And so he's great. He's like a 4 or 5-star Coles rated kicker.
Good. Bring him on.
He's a
Bring
dog,
him on.
dude. We were coaching an all-star game last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and he made like 2 or 3 tackles too. But he's a great kid, and great family. And I told him, I was talking a little mess to him, telling him that we was going to beat him, and rightfully so. But
Yep.
it's what's cool also is, and you and I were talking about this, is that I think being able to have a couple guys from Cisco Junior College on the team is pretty cool. What people don't know is, your brother was the head coach at Cisco Junior College, and he called me one day and he was like, "What's up, dog?" What's up, man? Hey, I'm with Coach White at a convention. What's up? He's like, "Hey, I got this dog. What's up? You trying to come with me?" And I'm like, we've always talked about it. Let's go see. And so I call Aaron, and next thing you know, we go down there and we go to Cisco, Texas. Population less than 3,000, gravel roads, stray cats everywhere. We adopted one. She's somewhere in our house right now. But wanted to take a chance on that. Wanted to take a chance and to do something with one of my best friends. And I think that was really special to be able to do. What did you think whenever your brother first got that head coaching job?
Yeah, and that was right as I was, kind of finishing up my career playing myself. So I had a lot of time on my hands. So I tried to make, as you know, I tried to be at every game. I know that, Cisco presents its own challenges, as you kind of just mentioned a little bit. There's not a whole lot going out there. Not a whole lot going on, but obviously it was his first opportunity as a head coaching job, and so hey, you take it where you get it and you run with it, and I think that he did. I think he made the most of that opportunity. I think him bringing you along allowed him to focus on so many other things, with you taking over obviously your defensive responsibilities plus your special teams responsibilities, plus you just being you and being able to relate to the guys. I know that was so crucial in in their success, and then propelling him ultimately to his job now, being the head coach at Navarro.
That was something that was so special to be able to, we were projected to be last place, and then when COVID happened, it was kind of weird because he's like, "Hey, you should," we figured this thing. Hey, I'm gonna come, and that was February, and then March happens, and it's March of 2020, and we don't know what's gonna happen, and so I'm like, we're just trying to like, Red, am I gonna have a job? And he's like, I think so, but I don't know. And so we move out there kind of on a prayer, and
just hoping.
Aaron gets a job, and I'm like, well, if we don't have a job, then I'm probably gonna be able to. I'll work at Walmart, wherever, what I'm saying?
Somewhere for the time being.
Ended up working out, and we got the job, and they move our season when we're there. It was weird. We were working out one day, and they were like, came into this thing and said, "Hey, we're going to be playing a spring season," and
Yep.
we had a handful of guys that quit right then. I'm going
Oh
home.
yeah.
And we had guys that stayed, and we just worked hard, and we stayed outside, and we ran, and we got those guys tough, and we got to actually get to know each other, more than a normal JUCO season. And so a lot of those guys, we had some true freshmen that were 18, and we had some guys that were like 22, 23 that would have already left. They ended up staying, and so we almost had like a really like a college football team.
Yep.
And
That goes a long ways.
it was crazy because the first we had our first scrimmage against Navarro, where your brother is now, and we beat them pretty well. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, they were either sorry or we're kind of
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And then the next week we play them out there again, and we beat them again. And we're like,
Yep.
well, maybe we are pretty good. So
Yeah.
then we come back in the spring. Our first game is against Diego Paiva, and he was at New Mexico Military, and
Yep.
he was splitting time, and we beat them. And then next thing you know, we're winning. We go to Blinn, beat Blinn, we hold them to 11 straight 3-and-outs. It was crazy. Like it was one of the craziest things I've been a part of. Next week we play Trinity Valley,
Yep.
and they're number 3 in the nation. And this is a story that I'm proud of. But I was showing my masculinity that we won. And I was just on edge the whole time. We benched the first quarterback. We got the second quarterback benched. We were on the third quarterback. And after the game, it kind of ended. And I went over to my wife, and I just like grabbed a hold of it. I just was like, oh, I'm just crying. She's like, what's wrong with you? I'm just like, I'm just so happy.
Sometimes sports will do that to you, man. It's a beautiful game.
It was wild. And then we went on to kind of win. We went out to NEO, kicked the field goal. Dude caught the snap on top of his head, put it down. We kicked the field goal, and then we beat it. And then the coolest thing about this, people don't know, is that we were able to win the conference championship at Tyler Junior College's field, which is where your brother played.
Yep.
And to kind of be a full circle moment for him. But, whenever you really, got love for somebody, you really care about them. It was so awesome to be able to have that moment for him. And, I know that night, it was a really great night that, all of us, I stayed back and was hanging out with you and your family and your brother. And I think that's whenever, your brother told all y'all that they were having a baby. And so it was a great time, man. We went 7-0, conference champion, third in the nation. If on any other year we would have played for the national championship, or at least had the opportunity to compete for it. But there was 2 of those guys, one that played for us that season, and one that we got and I recruited. Bobby Crosby, which is the number 1 jersey. That's what I got on. Me and Willis White, who was our offensive coordinator for your brother,
Coach White.
We actually went and walked with Bobby for his senior night a couple weeks ago at Texas State. His family's from Florida,
Wow.
so they weren't able to come out there. So it was a really special moment. And the other one's Titus Lyons, who's also out there. He's from Pottsboro, which is obviously right by Denison. And I actually got to get interviewed for an article about him while I was at Texas State homecoming game. And it was just kind of talking about just the great man that he is. Like his mom is fighting through some health problems, but like Titus is just, the salt of the earth. And so to be able to see those guys kind of play his last game, but then Bobby and Titus, it's really cool to be able to go into there. And yeah, I'll talk a little crap, obviously. I'm going to be up in the suite having a good time. But I'll be locked in on them because those are my dogs. And that's what football does, right? Like it brings us all together. It's been great to watch my alma mater play with actually people that I know and people that I've coached, people that I love. So I love the school regardless, but being able to know the people that are behind the numbers, I think that's really cool to be able to have. And so I think it's going to be great. It's going to be an awesome time. I think the weather's going to be good.
It's going to be a good game.
I hope not. I hope that we blow you out. I hope we blow you out.
I don't think it's going to turn out like it did last time, man. I think we might give y'all a run for your money this time
I think
around.
that, well, what I do know is, and you can speak to this, is your head coach, I don't know his name. He has done a great job with kind of like a spread triple option type attack, right?
Yep, they do. It's definitely not traditional, nowadays, as far as offenses go. It's kind of almost like some of those military schools. And so as a defensive coach, defensive player, that's hard. It's hard.
Yes.
You got to be assignment sound. Your guys got to do their job. And so, it's kind of bend, don't break on defense, but on the offense, it's kind of, hey, 2-3 yards, then we're going to bust one, know. So we'll see. I'm hoping, being a receiver quarterback, that they let him throw it a little bit more, but we'll see.
Well, I think that goes into what we're good at. So I think that, for us, we have been, very, I don't know exactly where offense ranks, but it's really high. We lost. We were back and forth with Arizona State, and then had high expectations for the season, and we lost to Arkansas State by 1, and then we lost to Troy in overtime. We missed a field goal, went to overtime, loss, and we lost to somebody the next week in double overtime, and then we lost to James Madison. So we went
Yeah.
on this crazy stretch, and so we had to go and win like the last three, in which we did.
Yeah. Got the
We beat
momentum.
Southern Miss, and which was great. But our offense has been awesome. Our defense has struggled, and great defensive coordinator, a great guy, and Dexter McCoy. But we'll have a new defensive coordinator next year. But there's kind of things that stink. You don't want
Yeah.
a guy to lose his job, but to be able to see those guys play, it's just they were. They were scoring, but they weren't stopping, the other team from scoring. And so
Yeah.
obviously the object is our first state championship. We won 56-55 double overtime. You know what I'm saying? The object is to hold the opponent to one
Yep.
less.
Yep.
But it hasn't happened so much. So predictions for the bowl game. What are you feeling?
I think that Texas State is going to put up some points, and I'm hoping Rice can keep up with them. I'm going to go 35-28 Rice.
35-28. Okay. Well, let's write this down so we can have this when we roll back to it the next time.
What
I
you got for
think
me?
it's gonna be. I mean, I think it's gonna be more of a. I think it'll even be even more. I'm gonna flip it, and I'm gonna say that it's gonna be 42-31 Texas State. It's going to be a great time. People are going to be excited. They're going to be happy. They don't want it to be a 7-3 game.
Yeah. We need some fireworks.
Last year we played in the First Responders Bowl again, and we played against North Texas when they were having their walk-on quarterback play, and we're like, well, we're playing a walk-on quarterback. We're going to kill these dudes. Man, that dude, that was
Man.
like his prelude to what he's been
And
doing
what a
this
season for him.
Oh
What
my
a
gosh,
story.
dude.
What a
And it was
story.
like we felt awful about ourselves because we're like, this walk-on guy is going to get us. Nah,
You feel a little
that was
better
the
now
steal.
looking at
That
after
that
this
dude,
year.
he's a dog.
What
He's
an
cold.
incredible story, man. That's I know off topic, off script, but that's what it's about, man. That's what, sports are about. Somebody that, never gave up,
Oh,
continue to
yeah,
go after his passion. And
yeah.
when you get that opportunity, make the most of it.
I think that's kind of like Kyle Trask, who played behind De'Aaron King, right?
Yep.
And so, like those kind of guys, that they got a dream and they roll with it,
Yep.
And it's hard for a quarterback. I mean, you played quarterback in high school and then switched to receiver, but it's hard for a quarterback to get recruited nowadays. And sometimes you
Yep.
have to go bet on yourself. Just what Baker Mayfield did.
Absolutely.
Um, so,
Absolutely.
um, so as we kind of wind this down, what to expect from the podcast? I think it's going to be what you alluded to earlier. It's going to be recognizing, giving flowers to the people that kind of made us who we are, but make Denison what it is. It'll be businessmen, it'll be athletes, coaches, educators. Could be a little league baseball
Yeah.
coach. It could be anybody, right?
Yep.
Like, and there's some people that we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to get on there, but we want to be able to talk specifically about certain things, board members, all those things. And I think it's to bring awareness, and
Yep.
obviously in a positive way,
Absolutely.
of how great this place is, right?
Yep.
And we hope that, and let's just kind of, give the, the not necessarily humble plug, but we hope that because of who we are, we can bring more awareness to it. And the people that we've met along the way can share it on their platforms, and it can kind of go, not necessarily viral, but more people can see it. We don't care
Yeah.
about viral. What we care about is people being able to see how great it is, and to be able to shine the light on the people that made us who we are. What's
Yeah.
something that you think?
I think that's it in a nutshell. I think again, it's just highlighting, the incredible people from the town of Denison, city of Denison, and just the incredible history in Denison, and just again trying to highlight some of those individuals, and just continue to try to in a way, I hope this podcast kind of invigorates the town,
Yeah, absolutely.
not just from an athletic standpoint, but just that sense of pride, that sense of Denison pride, gets back to a level of, where everybody's feeling it.
For sure. No, I think that's great. They moved the student section onto the home side now, and the band on the home side, and so that side's pretty good. It's pretty
Yep.
packed. We just gotta get back into getting those visitors over there, get them into the stands. But that's one of the things that it's exciting to be able to still see that, right? Still look onto that side, and to be able to look and just still see the stands being packed, and to look into the high school and see them putting the new turf into there, and those kind of things. But I think that there's those longtime season ticket owners. that are there that, there's been people that have had season tickets for a long time.
Yep.
But, being able to, we always will refer back to obviously football because on Friday night, for the most part, that's where everybody is. And if they're
Yep.
not there, they're listening to Lynn Burkhead on Katy Country, right?
100%.
93.1. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
I think that there's a lot to that. I still remember riding in the car. We may not be at every game, but we're listening to it, right? Like
Oh
that's what
yeah.
you do. You listen to it, and luckily nowadays you can watch it, which is awesome.
That's
But
so cool.
there's something about that nostalgia of the radio, of being able to just hear Lynn Burkhead, who's one of the best in the business. We'll get him on here at one point in time. Like,
Absolutely.
the media booth is named after him, and he's a phenomenal Denison fan that loves both of us dearly, and we love him too. And so he's somebody that just makes Denison football what it is, especially the voice of it, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things we're going to end with every time is kind of giving virtual flowers to people that someone that's impactful, someone that's had something that's going lately that's great, people that are just continuing to bring greatness into Denison. So, who are you giving your virtual flowers to this
Man,
week?
on this first episode, I think it was only fitting that I give flowers to my dad, Randy Taylor, who just retired after 15 plus years of service at Denison ISD. So congrats to him. Obviously, help
Pull the
me wish
flower
him.
off the
Hey, there you go. There you go,
off the
Dad.
Christmas tree.
Brian's got you. Um, if you see him out and about, wish him a happy retirement, good luck in the future. But he's just somebody who, was there from those Little League baseball days, that we were talking about on. Somebody who was always in my back pocket. Um, never pressured me to do one thing, play a certain sport or the other, kind of let me figure it out on my own time. And I think that was huge into developing a certain level of confidence, when I finally was ready to take a step and play, tackle
Yeah.
football or basketball or whatever it was. And so, man, all the credit in the world to him and everything that I've accomplished. There's no way that I would be anywhere close to the man I am or to accomplishing anything that I've accomplished without him. So, yeah, shout out Randy Taylor, man. Love you, Dad.
Hey, congratulations, man. I sent him a text message. Told him we'd play a little bit of left, right, center whenever everybody's back in
Oh
town,
yeah,
but he's, that's so awesome for him to be able to have that. I remember whenever he got that job. And so he's somebody that is definitely a staple in the community, and somebody that he's always going to give some good enthusiasm,
oh,
what I'm saying? But
Hey, yeah,
he's awesome, man. And it was also great to be able to have him. One of the coolest things about Cisco too was, your parents being there almost every single game.
yeah,
And, having coached in Tennessee for so long, it's not a lot of people that's ever there, in terms of people that you know. And so,
yep.
him and your mom, that's awesome. And congratulations to your dad. That's definitely somebody that is, something that's great about Denison. We'll have to have him on here if he wants to do it at
Oh,
some point in
we'll
time.
we'll, we'll get him on now. He's got plenty of time, man.
Another person the person I want to give virtual flowers to is somebody that is declared for the draft, and he's one of Denison's own, and so awesome to be able to see him kind of do his thing. And it's Jadarian Price, who's been at Notre Dame. He's been behind Jeremiah Love, but he's going to be one of the top running backs going into the draft this year. All-American on multiple different platforms. A couple years ago, whenever one of our quarterbacks at BA was getting recruited, I got to meet Marcus Freeman, and Marcus Freeman was talking to me about JD, and he was just like, man, before he hurt his Achilles, I really thought that he was on pace to be the starter,
Yep,
right then at that point in time. And he was like, but he's a phenomenal worker. He's somebody who's going to be great for us. And it was true.
yep,
But, for him to be able to see what it is, and that's that unselfishness that's there, right? You see him and Jeremiah Love, go with each other, and it shows you that, I can be excited for you, but also, get my own. And I
yep,
think that it takes special people. I think those are two special people. I don't know Jeremiah Love, but it
yeah,
seems like he's a phenomenal young man himself.
yep,
But with JD, I was looking back into just some of the stats, and obviously with him, I think it'll help him being the quote unquote backup, not necessarily
yep,
backup, the other running back with Jeremiah Love, less carries,
yeah,
but as explosiveness. But I think he had more. It was something along the lines of he had more touchdowns over 25 yards than he had like 1 to 2 yard runs, some crazy stat like that,
yep,
right? Like
yep.
it was
Explosive
unbelievable.
plays all day,
Yeah.
man.
And so, I hope we can get JD on here at some point in time,
Absolutely,
because
that'd be
he's
exciting.
definitely in real time showing the greatness of Denison, Texas. But what I did was I wrote down the top 10 rushing list
Oh
of
boy,
Denison, because JD is on that list. And so
yep,
we'll finish up with this, and we'll kind of go into there. And so, starting off our list at number 10, my man Jordan Taylor, 2504.
Hanging on by a thread, boy.
Hey,
Hanging
he's
on
right
by a
there.
thread.
Hey, JD hopped into the top 10. He almost knocked you out, but you're still there, and especially as a quarterback, that's really cool to be able to
Yeah,
have.
yeah, special.
Number 9, Marcus Fleming, who was great. He was one of my dad's good friends, and then
Yep,
number
Marcus.
8, Dion Marshall, who's actually my
Wow,
uncle.
wow.
And so shout out to my uncle Dion. Number 7, Ray Taylor, Shelly's brother, TJ's uncle.
Yep,
Ray Taylor was a phenomenal
another
running back for
staple.
him.
Yep.
Number 6, we get into Reggie Hunt, the Reaper himself. We hope to be able to get him on here. He's a TCU legend, Saskatchewan Rough
Yep.
Riders. I remember when he was the Grey Cup. We used to watch his highlight tape whenever he was just knocking
Boy,
people's
was a
heads off.
dog.
Number 5, best man at my wedding, Stanley Morrison. It's like pulling teeth to get him to speak on camera. So we may or may not be able to get him on here.
We'll
But
get him on here.
as a quarterback, being able to get almost 3,000 yards, like that's 1,500 both those years, basically,
Yep.
which is crazy.
Unheard of.
Number 4, Chris Robertson, 4504. Went to Texas. I think he was playing behind Priest Holmes and Ricky Williams. I could be wrong on that, but they ended
I'll
up going to
round
U
out
of
your top
H.
three. Who you got? You
And
got Corey Robertson, number
so,
three.
no, JD's number 3. JD's
Ah, I
number
thought you
3,
got him.
5,095.
Okay.
And then Corey Robertson, who's my favorite Denison
Yeah.
Yellow Jacket of all time. The love of the game came from Corey Robertson. I was the ball boy, and I was running down the sideline, like I said, and Corey was phenomenal. Went to Iowa, 52-18. He actually has a son in 8th grade this year, and so Corey is great. But think about that. Corey Robertson and Chris Robertson in the top 5
Yep.
brothers, right?
Yep.
Like that's phenomenal. And then number 1, our dog DJ Jones, RIP DJ Jones, your classmate. Kind of talk a little bit about DJ.
RIP to my brother first of all, man. Miss you dearly.
100%.
He was special. He definitely was one of the main things that made our class go. Especially on Friday nights. And I think it was a mindset for him too. The lights were never too bright for him. He was never too
Never,
high, never too low. He
never.
was just always even keel.
Yep.
And I think that that rubbed off onto a lot of guys on the team. I know, but obviously he could run with the football, man. He was a special
Yeah.
talent, and
Yeah.
it's tragic, with what happened. Obviously, I think that he would have done incredible things at Texas A&M. And it would have been fun, to see that happen. But we'll see him again someday.
Yep.
But shout out DJ Jones, man, number one.
Hey, shout out to his mom, Tanya, who was at y'all's class reunion. She's phenomenal. His stepdad, Skip, who passed away.
Oh,
Those kind of people. I smile because when I think of DJ, I think of his voice and I think of him saying certain things.
oh
And
yeah, yeah,
but,
yeah,
I mean, it's like it's definitely it's funny, but he's there 55-37. That's it helps whenever you get 434 against McKinney. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And,
yep,
and you hit a late draw for 90 something yards against Big Spring to be able
yep,
to win the game, like those kind of things. But DJ definitely at number 1, and RIP to DJ. And
yep.
congratulations to there's no way to segue that, but congratulations to JD as he continues to embark upon the draft. We'll kind of wrap it up here. We're excited. If you stayed here for this long, we've been here for probably longer than we thought we'd be. But it's something that I think it's something that we feel strongly about, and something that and whenever you love something, you can talk about it all day, right?
Yep.
And they talk about whenever you love your job, you never work a day in your life. Or when you talk about something that you love, you can talk for all day as well.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
I'm really excited to see where this goes. We're hoping to drop this right here to be on the new year, right before the Texas State Rice game, and then we'll kind of roll from there. And between being dads and working, being able to put this out here, because I think it's going to be important. I think it's going to be great for our community as we continue to go into there. And you can kind of wrap us up, Doc.
Yeah, no, if you stuck with us, appreciate it. It's going to be good moving forward. We're going to have a lot of great people on here to have a lot of great conversations. And on that note, jump in our comments whenever, leave a comment. If there's
Yeah,
anybody influential that you can think of, within our community, or somebody who's made an impact in your life, anybody, drop a name. We may not be able to get everybody on the show. Obviously, we'll do what we can, but it'll be good just to give some more flowers to so many people that deserve it within our community.
For sure. And if you have any questions for anything that you want us to answer, be able to put it in there. Hopefully we can get to the point where we can get into like a super chat and people can start doing different things. We go on live and all that. You know, right now we're in the outhouse, but hopefully eventually we'll be in the penthouse
Yeah.
with all of our setup. We got mics coming and all that, ring lights and all those things, being able to get
Bear with
into it.
us.
But, you know, we're it's humble beginnings right now. But you know, it's one of those things that this podcast is going to be great. It's going to live up to its name and it's going to be really excited. But dog, I appreciate it. It kind of wraps up episode 1. You know, I think it's going to be really exciting. I appreciate your time and appreciate y'all for watching us.
Appreciate
It's
you as
great to
always,
be.
dog. Appreciate you,
Hey,
everybody. Hey, and we'll see you next time.
it's a great to be podcast. We're out.